Welcome back to Team O'Neill. I'm Wyatt. What we're going to take a look at today is threshold braking. One of the most basic and fundamental skills that every driver should have right from when you get your license. But when you get into winter driving and performance driving and driving race cars, threshold braking can get pretty tricky. You should be able to threshold brake effectively on all surfaces with your right foot or your left foot and incorporate that with all the other techniques that you're using. So let's hop in the car, go for a ride, and we'll get right into it. All right, so threshold braking. What's threshold braking? Threshold braking is the maximum amount of brake pressure that you can use before the tires lock up. We're driving around today in this little Subaru with the ABS disconnected because we can stop much faster on snow and ice. If you've been following this channel for any period of time or you've driven in the winter, you probably know that ABS is pretty bad on snow and ice. So we've disconnected it. But if you have it in your street car, threshold braking is just braking up to that point where the pedal starts to go and then backing off and trying again and trying to avoid that pedal chatter so much. So if you want to practice threshold braking, all you need to do is find a relatively safe place to do it. This could be, a deserted back road, nobody behind you, you can see what's going on. And all you really need to do is start building up brake pressure and building up brake pressure until you can feel the tires want to lock up, and then just back off a little and make micro adjustments essentially to find that sweet spot where you get the best possible deceleration from your car. If you go a little too hard on the brakes, you push a little too far, the wheels are going to lock up. And when the wheels lock up, two things are going to happen. One, the car's going to get into a skid. It's going to start to understeer if you have any steering in. And two, on a hard surface, you're actually just going to stop decelerating as well. As you start braking, you'll feel the car slowing down and slowing down better and better until you lock the brakes up, and then it kind of stops slowing down and just gets into a skid. So on pavement, on ice, on hard surfaces, two-dimensional surfaces, you don't want to lock the brakes up. You want to threshold brake and use all of that available grip. On three-dimensional surfaces, if you got an inch of snow on top of pavement, locking the tires up can help you. If you're in the mud, locking the tires up can help you. In the sand, anything like that, you'll stop much faster by digging in. But that's a judgment call you need to make in the moment, just analyzing the grip you got, feeling when you get on the brakes how well that's working for you, and if the tires lock up and you start decelerating even better, then roll with that. So that's just something to get used to on different surfaces as you're practicing. And the nice thing about threshold braking is you avoid the skidding. No matter what surface you're on, if you threshold brake and you get the most braking you can without locking the wheels up, the car stays nice and stable. And in your car, if that threshold brake is, 72% brake pressure, you got to know right where that sweet spot is, or right about there, and get as close as you can kind of quickly. So just a quick, easy drill that you can do for yourself. You can start out going, 30 miles an hour down to 10, 30 miles an hour down to 10, and repeat that, and repeat it, and train and practice and get your foot dialed in so you can do it really well. Here we are, 30 miles an hour, brake, 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 down to 10. So not too bad. You probably heard back in the day people talking about pumping the brakes. Pump the brakes to stop. To hone in on that perfect threshold braking, you're almost pumping the brakes, but at a very micro level. Get on the brakes, ease on, ease off a little, ease on, ease off a little, and make those micro adjustments kind of hovering around that threshold braking point. If that 72% brake pressure is like the perfect threshold brake, you're never going to get there. You're going to get to 50, 60, 70, 80, too much, back to 70, not enough, 75, kind of fine tune and dialing that in. Micro adjustments to do the best you can, and that's how you stop the fastest. When you really look at it, that 72% brake doesn't exist, because as your tires are rolling along down the road, you've got different grip here and here and here and here and here and here and here as your tires are rolling over snow and ice and dirt and gravel and pebble and ice and snow on top of ice and gravel, whatever it might be. There is no absolute perfect amount of brake. If you're really very good at reading the road and analyzing the conditions you've got, and you see, ooh, it's icy, I'm gonna brake lighter. When it gets grippier, you can push a little harder. If you see snow, you could back off a little. And you know, that threshold brake as you're traveling over different surfaces changes, but you've gotta be really good to do that. If you can find somewhere to threshold brake across a grip change like that, definitely do it, practice. That's a great place. If it's snow and it turns to dirt coming into the corner, get good at threshold braking on that. Brake easy on the snow, and as soon as those front tires are on the dirt, increase brake pressure. If it turns to ice, decrease brake pressure, you know, and play that balancing act, and that's the key to driving. The other variables you're always looking for, uphills and downhills. It sounds silly, and it probably goes without saying that your car stops better going uphill than it does going downhill, and that's just because you've got gravity working for you and against you. So you've always got to make that adjustment. If you need to slow down from, you know, 70 to 20 going uphill, you can use a shorter distance. Versus going downhill, you've got to plan ahead, and even if you dial in that perfect threshold brake, it's just going to take you longer to slow down. If the road's cambered, sort of slanted to the side, that's going to affect you. When you threshold brake on an off-camber road, again, just think of it as gravity trying to pull you downhill. And if it's a side slope or something like that, if you're in an off-cambered bit of road, when you threshold brake, that car's going to move downhill potentially, especially if you lock the tires up at all, you're going to start getting pulled where gravity's taking you. The other sort of treacherous situation that's going to jump out and bite you if you're not paying attention is what we call split Muse situations. A split Muse situation is just a scientific name that you're going to see a lot when you get into kind of driving literature and that sort of thing, meaning you've got more grip on one tire than another. As in, the right side of the car's on gravel and the left side of the car's on ice. The left side's on snow, the right side's on pavement. Any of those situations, when you go to threshold brake, the car's going to yaw big time. This is where a lot of those stability control systems and ABS is wonderful because it keeps knuckleheads out of getting into too much trouble, but you need to see that coming up and brake for the more slippery surface. If half the car's on pavement and the other half's on ice, brake like the whole car's on ice. If you brake harder than that, two things are going to happen. The tires that are on the ice are going to lock up, and the tires that are on the pavement are going to grip. That's going to put the car into a big skid. It's going to happen. It's not that big a deal. Just ease off the brakes, a little bit of counter steer. But just know the way to avoid that is to brake for the most slippery surface you're on. Once you get good at threshold braking at different speeds, you know, you can go from 30 to 10, then go from 50 down to 20, then go from 70 to 30, and just keep mixing it up on yourself. So your high speed, your threshold braking, you can use that with heel toe. We've got a whole video on heel toe shifting. I'll put the link in the description just so we don't have to go into that all again right now. If you're getting into some real high performance driving and your goals are maybe to go racing or rallying, you're going to want to do the same exercises with your left foot on the brake. Again, go check out our channel. We've got whole videos about left foot braking. When you get into a race car, it's not like you're going to left foot brake every single corner you come into. Sometimes we get comments, and I think people misunderstand. We're not about only left foot braking. We're about braking sort of ambidextrously or ambipedally or whatever you want to call it. You can threshold brake with your left foot. You can threshold brake with your right foot. You can threshold brake with your left foot. You can threshold brake with your right foot. And you can do these exercises. Everybody thinks that it's really tough to get good at left foot braking, but if you do that and you're just brake, 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 all right, I felt that out, now I do it with my right foot. Okay, got a good feel for that. Now you can do it with your left foot. Yeah, a little bit of lockup, get some speed, do it again with your right foot. Not bad, get some speed, try it again with your left foot. And if you drive around like that for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, you're gonna get really good really quickly. There's no huge secret to any of this stuff. It's just like anything else that you're good at. It takes practice. So just find a piece of road, get some speed up and threshold brake, not bad. Get a little speed again and threshold brake, a little too much. The nice thing is once you're pretty comfortable and confident threshold braking, it's also your biggest indicator how much grip you have. You know, most drivers, when you drive out in the snow or something like that and you're not sure what's going on, the first thing you can do once you, again, nobody's behind you, you're in a safe place, is start threshold braking, and as soon as the tires lock up, you know how much grip you have on the road. If it's snowy or icy and you're not really sure and it's like, it's a little hairy out, threshold brake. Instantly, your brain is now calibrated to how much grip you have. If the brakes lock up easily, it's obviously very slippery, or if you can threshold brake kind of hard before they lock up, you've got more grip. Now your brain knows how much you can turn, how much you can accelerate, where you can brake, how much speed you can carry, and you just go from there. One last kind of final consideration to get good at is realizing the difference between threshold braking in gear versus threshold braking with the clutch in or in neutral. And this is going to be very different in different kinds of cars. Basically, when you're in gear and you threshold brake, in an all-wheel drive car like this, you've not just got the tires on the ground, but you've got the drive shafts, so both front drive shafts, both rear drive shafts, the front diff, the rear diff, the center diff, that drive shaft, the revolving mass of that, the transmission, the engine that's running, all of that stuff is working against you, locking the brakes up. So that's why, if you're driving down a slippery hill like this, if you're in gear and you threshold brake, you can brake pretty hard before things lock up. You've got the whole drive line of the car and all those rotating pieces and the engine running, keeping you from locking it up. So threshold braking, you can get on it pretty hard. But the risk is if you do lock everything up, the motor stalls. Tachometer's bottomed out and we're sliding off the road. Everything's dead silent. When you try threshold braking with the clutch in, what you'll find is the tires are going to lock up more easily at a lighter brake pressure. You've decoupled that running engine. So with the clutch in or in neutral, that threshold brake point isn't at 72% anymore, it's at like 50%. The tires are going to lock up much more easily. The nice thing though is that it's not going to stall the engine when that happens. If you're in second gear and you go to threshold brake, when you slow it down and then push the clutch in, when you push the clutch in, a lot of times the tires will lock up. So say you got a long straightaway and you're trying to brake coming into a corner, you see a lot of real kind of, super black belt drivers out on the track when they're braking and they go to heel and toe. As soon as they push the clutch in, they actually ease off a little bit of brake, get their shift, let the clutch out, brake a little harder, and compensate for that effect. When you're braking hard in gear, know that when you push the clutch in, back off the brake a little, accomplish your shift. Once their clutch is back out, apply a little more brake again. Being able to do that in real time takes a lot of practice. Your other option coming into corners is just to clutch in and threshold brake, accomplish the shift whenever the heck you want to, and you can always stay at that nice lighter threshold braking pressure. Totally your call. Lots of different ways to skin that cat. And really it's one of those places where you're gonna build your own driving habits and find your own driving style. The way that you do it now is probably gonna be different from the way that you do it in 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years. As you build more and more skills as a driver and you need to incorporate threshold braking and pendulum turns, threshold braking and trail braking, threshold braking and hand braking, threshold braking with a couple downshifts, threshold braking with a couple downshifts and a pendulum turn and a handbrake. It really is one of the most basic skills that everybody needs to know. But even at the most advanced levels of any kind of racing, those drivers are out there practicing threshold braking with different tires and in the rain and on downhills and on off-camber roads and with their other techniques. So just steal a page from their book, get out there and practice your threshold braking. When you find somewhere safe and you can do it even just 5 or 10 times in a row, every once in a while, your skills will be there when you need them. It's all just about building that muscle memory and programming your feet to do what you need them to do so that your brain can concentrate on more important things. Especially when you get into racing, there's a lot of other stuff that needs to be going through your head. And you need to know that if you push harder and drive faster and push those braking points later and later and later, your feet will be able to sort of cash that check when they need to. All right, so that's just a quick once over the world of threshold braking. Hopefully you found it informative. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or an advanced driver, finding a safe place to threshold brake at different speeds on different surfaces is absolutely critical. Just like most of this stuff, it's a perishable skill. Since I got out of this car and I've been standing here talking to you, I'm a worse driver now than I was a few minutes ago. Every day, week, month, and year that you spend not skidding around and sliding and driving at the limit, your skill set just isn't what it used to be. So get out there, get some seat time, have some fun with it. If you'd like to do some driving with some professional in-car instruction, check out teamoneil.com. There's a variety of different courses you can take up here at our campus in New Hampshire. If you're into these driving skills videos, please check out our channel and consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you're notified when new episodes are released. Other than that, have fun, be safe, and we'll catch you next time.